Hey, yo.
If I can be serious for a minute.
Oh, yeah. Acknowledge me.
What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of Cheap Pops with Primo, hosted, of course, by the Sit Down Marks podcast. It's your boy, Primo from the pod, co-host from the East Coast with all the hot takes, opinions, and everything else I want to talk about. So before we get to what we will be talking about today, let's do a quick plug about the podcast as a whole. So Sit Down Marks podcast, last Friday, we had a full-length episode. It actually aired live on Thursday, but dropped on Friday on audio platforms. Pro Wrestling Schools and Academies, and plus we had our Money in the Bank predictions. Speaking of Money in the Bank, how about that? Money in the Bank weekend with Money in the Bank and Worlds Collide. That was awesome. Additionally, this week also dropped the interview with the new guys that was put on by Dylan and DB. So hope you guys enjoyed that as well. Now, let's get to what we're going to talk about today on Cheap Pops with Primo. I know it's been a while. We have been doing full-length episodes, interviews. Also, another quick plug for my boy DB. He's been putting out DB's Territory Treasures. If you missed it, go back. If you want to learn about Andre the Giant, if you want to learn about Kurt Hennig, he's got people coming up that he's going to be talking about. I won't spoil them right now. You're going to have to tune in to find out. But he's got them locked and loaded, episodes ready to go for your listening pleasure. He's talking about old school wrestlers, giving you stories, personal touches, everything in between. Without further ado, let's get to today's topic of conversation on Cheap Pops with Primo. I want to talk about something important to me, and that is Brotherhood. So, Brotherhood. I have brothers in real life, and I have brothers I've made throughout my life. What do I mean by that? I grew up with two brothers, and I'd do anything for those two guys. I'm a middle child. I have an older brother and a younger brother. They mean everything to me. Those guys are my brothers. That on paper we're half brothers, but we grew up together as full on real brothers. Like that's not a half brother was never a term that meant anything to me. We are brothers. With that being said, I made other brothers throughout my life. I was in the military. I made brothers and sisters in the military that I've consider them brothers and sisters for life, but we're talking about brothers here, so let's stick on that. I moved up to where I live now based off of a friendship and brotherhood that I have with a guy that lives up where I currently live. And these relationships you build and the relationships you have throughout your life mean a lot, and I just don't take them for granted. But in terms of the wrestling industry, today we're going to talk about 3 real-life brother tag teams and 3 kayfabe brother tag teams. So 3 tag teams that were actually real-life brothers and succeeded, and 3 tag teams that were billed as brothers but were never actually really related. But they were, succeeded however it may be. So, let's get to the first of the brother tag teams. Of course, you know me. I used to be billed on this podcast as from the land of the extreme. So, of course, I'm going to start out with none other than the Hardy Boys. That's right, Matt and Jeff Hardy. They are real-life brothers. Obviously, as a tag team, they have had tremendous success. Their names are forever synonymous with ladder matches, TLC matches. They're known as Team Extreme, the Hardy Boys. They're known as, always going above and beyond in their matches. You never knew what you're going to see. That's what made them my childhood favorites. But these guys are real brothers. And could you imagine being able to lean on your actual brother while you're going through the trials and tribulations of coming up in the business? That's got to be really cool. Especially these guys, they were so young when they started out. I think there was a point where Jeff even lied about his age because he was so young, too young to actually job. But he ended up being able to anyway because of he didn't tell the truth about his age. Now look what's come of him now. Obviously, you have Jeff Hardy, who's a multi-time world champion, Matt Hardy, who is a multi-time world champion and multiple promotions as well, and obviously 9-time WWE Tag Team Champions. So the success is off the charts with these guys, and that is a real-life tag team of brothers. Those guys are actually blood-related, and that is amazing to me. Another one we're going to talk about is the Steiner brothers. We couldn't talk about a list of brother tag teams and not mention the Steiner brothers. Of course, you got Rick and Scott Steiner. They are, they're from Michigan. They used to come out with the Michigan Letterman jackets. They were innovators. During their time as a tag team, they were amazing. They created moves. So did the Hardys, but the Steiners created moves, and they were known as that hard-hitting, athletic wrestling tag team. They were known as the brothers you just don't want to mess with during their time. Now, of course, they both went on to have, they went on to split up. Scott became Big Papa Pump, Big Bag Booty Daddy, of course, holla if you hear me, and had his own success in that right as well. But everybody, even with Scott Steiner's later solo run, people will always remember the Steiner brothers with their work in Japan, WWE, WCW, all over the place. They're legitimate. Like, those guys are legit tough guys. And I'll tell you what, if I was, say, their little brother or their cousin, I'd be happy to be on their side, because those guys are some tough guys. And that is Rick and Scott Steiner. Next up, more of I wouldn't say new, because they're not new. They've been around forever, but I'd say they are a little newer than the last two brother tag teams, and that is in their current EVPs of AEW, and that is none other than the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. They are real life brothers. They're from California. Of course, they are freaking indie stars for everything they've accomplished worldwide. They've been all over the place, all over the world, I should say. They're known for, their super kick parties, as people say, all their flippy spot monkey fest, or whatever you want to call it. I'm personally into that, so that's cool to me. But they are pivotal in redefining tag team wrestling in, the 2000s and 2010s. They're also, a huge part of the expansion of the expansion and popularization of the Bullet Club, the Elite, and of course the inception of AEW. These guys are awesome. You could say they really styled themselves off of the Hardy Boys, but I would say that they also styled themselves after the Rockers and other people. It's not just the Hardy Boys. You could tell they were a big inspiration for the Young Bucks, but I can see several different tag teams that they could potentially have been inspired by. But that's another real life tag team of brothers, and that's Matt and Nick Jackson. So that's 3 tag teams that we talked about just now: the Hardy Boys, the Steiners, and the Young Bucks. Those are all 3 tag teams, real life brothers. Of course, they've all had their, I'd say Matt and Jeff, they had, a couple tiffs, if you will, during their careers where they fought against each other. Of course, Scott and Rick did too. some notable honorable mentions I want to mention real quick. Obviously, the Usos. I mean, they're freaking twins. And another one that's near and dear to my heart is Harlem Heat, which that's Booker T and Stevie Ray. Now, let's get into 3 tag teams that were billed as brothers, but obviously are not actually related. So, when Matt and Jeff were killing it in the Attitude Era as Team Extreme and the Hardy Boys, and they were going up against another tag team known with their ladder matches, their tag team ladder matches, Edge and Christian was billed as brothers back then. A lot of people don't remember that, but when they came in together, they were billed as brothers, and they are not actually related. If you didn't know that till just now, sorry to break it to you. Edge and Christian are not actually brothers. I mean, they're best friends in real life, but they aren't actually brothers. I do remember specifically whenever Christian broke off on his own, there was a segment where he tricked Edge by telling him that he got a call from Mom, that Mom was in a car crash, and he got Edge to leave the arena. So that's how much they played on that brother dynamic, even though those guys aren't brothers. Obviously, each of them went on to have crazy singles success. Edge is, I think, an 11-time world champion at least, and now he's doing stuff in AEW after, his small stint back in WWE after his amazing return. But then Christian, he's just known as an amazing in-ring competitor. He's always so smooth, and he's done it all. I mean, he's done it all. He's been world champion on multiple promotions. He's reinvented himself a few times, and he just always is on top of what he's doing. But Edge and Christian aren't real life brothers. So that's why they make we'll call it the Kayfabe Brothers list. Next up on the Kayfabe Brothers list would be the next pair in the trio of tag teams for those TLC matches, and that is the Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley. Now, with these guys, it's kind of different because they actually started off in ECW as like part of the entire Dudley family. So there was more to their entire family, but Bubba Ray and Devon are the tag team that broke off into the WWE and obviously became one of the best tag teams of all time. If anywhere you saw Bubba, you saw Devon, except for whenever they stupidly broke them up when they were doing the Raw and SmackDown drafts in the 2000s. But even today, if we see Bubba Ray show up at a Royal Rumble or somewhere like that, we're like, oh, where's Devon? Is Devon nearby? So they're Hall of Famers. They're amazing. They are not related. My blood. They are related through the Dudley family, which is obviously a kayfabe family. But, I mean, I'm sure they are still brothers for life. Now, this last one that we're going to talk about real quick is pretty funny because it's their story of them being brothers still goes on to this day, even though they're both retired. But that is the Brothers of Destruction, otherwise known as Undertaker and Kane. So when Undertaker first debuted, he didn't have a brother. He was just Undertaker, and then eventually down the line, there was talks from, Paul Bearer saying, your brother's alive, and then it came out that the whole thing had burned down, and Kane was alive, and he's still alive, or he was stuck inside and still alive, and that's kind of what started their whole feud. Obviously, Kane debuted, he ripped the door of the cage, and it's all history from there, as they say. But Kane and Undertaker are not actually related, even though as soon as Kane debuted in 1998, or whenever it was. It was 97, 98. It was that Bad Blood. They are not actually related, although they've been tied to the hip as far as storylines and everything else goes throughout the rest of Kane's career, for that matter. They've had WrestleMania matches, they've had the Inferno match, they had Buried Alive matches. Undertaker was in a Buried Alive match at Survivor Series with Vince McMahon, where Kane intervened and actually helped Vince McMahon bury Undertaker alive. And that's eventually what led to the WrestleMania 20 return of The Undertaker, where he returned as the Dead Man. So Kane buried the American Badass, and then the Dead Man returned at WrestleMania 20, and it was like Kane saw a ghost, and that was awesome to me. Like I've said many times, WrestleMania 20 was the first WrestleMania I got to ever purchase, so it was a big deal. Now, these guys aren't actually related. However, it was always portrayed that they were. I mean, these guys are very similar in stature and size. They both have that supernatural, aura to their gimmick. Undertaker's the Dead Man, and Kane is the devil's favorite demon, the big red machine, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk supernatural and like horror stuff. Everybody remembers May 19th with Kane, whenever he was coming out with See No Evil. But these guys are also multiple-time tag team champions. Now, they aren't as, prolific in the tag team realm as the rest of the teams that I've listed. But they still have had their tag team championships, and we always knew that if these two were together, they were near unstoppable. So it only made sense that they couldn't always be a tag team. Otherwise it'd be too OP, too overpowered for the rest of the roster. But obviously they're both legends in their own right, individually. But even cooler as a tag team, to the point to where me and my older brother still refer to ourselves sometimes as the Brothers of Destruction. Me and my older brother also call ourselves the Bash Brothers from Mighty Ducks, but that's another thing. But anyway, so that's the three kayfabe tag teams that are billed as brothers. There's a few others. The Bashams. The Bashams were billed as twins. They're not even related. There's a bunch out there. And I'm sure obviously I missed a bunch, but the storylines for the kayfabe brothers that I mentioned, the three tag teams that I mentioned, stood out and have stood like the test of time as far as Dudley Boys and Kane and Undertaker, because to this day, Bubba Ray and Devon, their names are tied together. And to this day, the story of The Undertaker and Kane is one of the greatest wrestling stories ever told. So, I want to tail end all this with it. How would things have been different if, say, none of this, for instance, if we never had Kane and Undertaker as brothers, their whole storyline would either be non-existent or not make sense. So there's that part. So do the kayfabe brother storylines matter in these situations? I'd say yes. Obviously, not every two brothers in the world is going to become a tag team. So, of course, if you could have a kayfabe brother and you can create a storyline out of that, I say more power to you. That's amazing. But I think if you would have taken away that storyline of brothers, say, for instance, Edge and Christian, so they utilized the brother gimmick when they split up. But after that, they kind of like disappeared and they never really talked about it again. The Dudley Boys, they come from the Dudley family. So if they didn't have that storyline, then that whole Dudley family wouldn't exist, and that they wouldn't even exist, because the Dudley family actually existed before Bubba Ray did. So he actually came into it in ECW after the fact. But I think that it's so cool how they've done that over the years, whether it's real brothers or fake brothers. It's really cool whenever they have those tag teams, because the chemistry is top notch, especially your real brother. You imagine the Usos. The Usos and Matt and Jeff Hardy are two tag teams that I can always look at and go, like, especially the Usos. I could just imagine that one knows what the other's thinking or what he's going to do before he does it in the ring. Just that chemistry of you and your brother being that deep into the business together and just knowing everything about each other. I think that's the coolest. And I do think that is a good advantage. Like, obviously it's not cheating or anything. I mean, they're just tag team like everybody else. It's not their fault they're related, but it's definitely a good advantage for them. Now, if any of you say you never believed that some of these guys are brothers or whatever, like Edge and Christian or Kane and Undertaker, I've seen interviews of Undertaker saying that he still has people coming up to him asking if how his brother's doing, how Kane's doing. So that's pretty funny. But I will say, real or fake, Brotherhood in wrestling is still all about the chemistry and the storytelling, whether they shared real blood or they just shared the road and the storylines together. That believability is what really got to us fans. So what I want you guys to do is hit us in the comments, hit us in the episode comments down below, hit us in our Discord, and let me know any brother tag teams that I did not talk about that you want to talk about. Because this is actually a really fun topic. It's a cool one. I love tag team wrestling. And like I mentioned, at the beginning of the podcast, Brotherhood is important to me. So, without further ado, I'm going to get out of here. But before I do, once again, we did have a podcast on June 6th, which was about wrestling academies and schools and our Money in the Bank predictions. Let's go back and listen to that, see how correct we were. And you could also listen to DB and Dylan's interview with the new guys. Also, be on the lookout for more DB's Territory Treasures, because you never know who he's going to talk about next. And you can go back to listen to the old Territory Treasures. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say right now. But you can go listen to the other Territory Treasures anytime you want, because those are standalone episodes that don't need any timeline. So you can go listen to them anytime, and they will stand on their own feet. Without further ado, once again, said that twice, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you all for coming to another episode of Cheap Pops with Primo, hosted by the Sit Down Marks podcast. I'm Primo from the pod, the co-host from the East Coast, and I am out.